Today, for our daily cancellation, we must take a closer look at something that may appear to be nothing but celebrity gossip on the surface. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian are going through a divorce, which is a development that surprises only because it took 7 whole years of marriage before it happened. I have no opinion on the divorce itself, except that you better enjoy getting divorced if you marry a Kardashian to begin with. The issue of relevance today, though, is the public feud between Kanye and Kim pertaining to their 8-year-old daughter North's social media use. Now, we'll leave aside the unfortunate fact that these two decided to name their daughter Northwest. At least they named her based on compass directions and not latitude and longitude coordinates. Northwest sounds better as a name than like 34 degrees north, 118 degrees west. But still, Northwest is kind of a silly name. In any case, the 8-year-old recently appeared on TikTok with her own account, and she was posting videos. Kanye did not approve, and he said so publicly. And this prompted Kim to defend herself by going to TMZ, and the outlet reports, quote, "Sources close to the former couple tell TMZ North does not have her own TikTok account, nor does she have the app on her own phone any longer. Instead, we're told North can only access TikTok through a joint account on Kim's phone and only uses it in her mother's presence. Not just that, but our sources say the comments for North and Kim's account are fully disabled. We've even spoken to sources at TikTok who tell us North and Kim's account passes the company's terms and conditions for minors. Now, here's why Kanye might be in a tiff over this. According to another source in the know, we know there was, in fact, an incident recently where North did go live on TikTok from her own phone, but our sources say Kim disciplined her over that and made the changes then." Really important reporting from TMZ. So what we can take from this is that not only does the 8-year-old have a TikTok account, but she has her own phone with internet access as well at 8 years old. Now, I'm not a fan of marital disputes being aired publicly like this, especially when they have children that are directly involved. Then again, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West have never really known how to speak to each other or to anyone except through TMZ, so there's no surprise there. But putting the method of communication aside, does Kanye have a point? Is his 8-year-old daughter too young for social media? The answer, of course, is yes, obviously, without a question, without any doubt whatsoever. Your young children should not be anywhere near social media. They shouldn't have phones at all. Now, older children shouldn't really be on social media either, but the situation is even more dire the younger the child is. Also, it's much easier to control what a younger child does. An older child has more independence. She can drive, she may have her own means of income. So your ability to control her is not entirely erased, but you have to rely more on influence than control as the child grows older. And that's kind of that's the process of parenting, right? Is that when your child is very, very young, you are physically controlling them a lot of the times. If you want them to go somewhere, you pick them up and bring them there. So you're exercising physical control. But as the child grows older, that physical control, you start to rely less on that and more on influence. You're trying to influence your child in a certain direction. What about at 8 years old? Well, she can't go anywhere unless you take her there. She can't own anything unless you buy it. Unless you're a fully negligent parent, you should know generally where she is all the time and what she's doing, even if you're not with her every second of the day. If your 8-year-old has a phone and the internet and social media, it's because you have not only allowed her to do so, but you have funded and facilitated it. You have to pay for it. That is, you have funded and facilitated the damage that is being done to her. All that damage, you are paying for it to happen. This is very simple, really. All we need to do is make a chart, right? And this is a good way to clarify a lot of things in life. Make a chart. On one side, you can list the negatives of social media use for 8-year-olds. And on the other side, list the positives. So let's begin with the positives. What is good about having your 8-year-old daughter on social media? What are the objective benefits? Well, this is an easy list to fill out because there's nothing on it. The closest thing to a benefit that parents will cite for their young child's social media use is that all her friends are doing it. Well, I don't want her to be left out. This is exactly the opposite of the sort of advice my parents gave me as a child when they constantly warned me that you should not do things just because your friends are doing them. If your friends are jumping off a bridge, would you do it too? Was the classic rejoinder. And of course, the answer to that was, yeah, I totally would and did jump off of bridges and other elevated structures, sometimes into water, sometimes into bushes or piles of leaves. I did it because it looked fun. or because it seemed funny at the time to hurt or maim myself intentionally. Because I was, that's what boys do. But social media is a different kind of bridge entirely. And once you jump off of it, you fall eternally into a bottomless pit that eats your soul a little bit at a time. The point is that kids may think something is worthwhile because their friends are doing it, because kids are immersed completely in peer culture. All they can see is what their friends are doing. What matters most to them in the world is acceptance from their peers. It's the only thing that matters to them for a lot of these kids. It matters so much that these kids these days will potentially kill themselves if that approval and acceptance is withheld. That's how desperately they depend on it. And this is exactly why adults need to be adults. They need to rescue their children from this immersion. They need to see clearly where their children cannot. An adult who encourages or allows social media use on the basis that all their friends are doing it is an adult who thinks no clearer than the child he's supposed to be in charge of. Aside from the peer pressure defense, all the other positives of social media use are really arguments for mitigated negatives. And there's a whole lot of this, where you have parents arguing for something and making arguments as if they're listing positives, but actually they're listing mitigated negatives. So when Kim Kardashian, for example, says that she's monitoring her daughter's internet activity, she's not presenting an item for the positive column. All she's doing is arguing that the bad isn't quite as bad as her husband claims. Yeah, it's bad, but I'm monitoring it. Okay, but that's not a good. Even if I agree that you can mitigate the bad when it comes to social media use, and in fact, I think that most of the time you can't. But even if I agree that you could, it's still not good. It's still objectively better for them just not to be on it at all. You can mitigate the risk of driving drunk at 100 miles an hour down the road by wearing a seatbelt. I mean, it's if you're going to do it, it's better to do it with a seatbelt than without. But that's not an argument that says that driving 100 miles down the road drunk is good. Right? The objectively better, of course, would be to not do that at all. So what about the bad? What goes in the negative column? Well, we know that social media use rewires our brains in an almost literal way. Many studies have been done on this subject, and there's quite a lot of confirmation for example, the World Psychiatric Association's findings that social media causes our brains to experience effects similar to the sort of cognitive decline that comes with age. Right? It turns us all into a bunch of Joe Bidens. Now, imagine how that works in the developing brain of a child. When social media causes cognitive decline, and this is happening to a brain that is still developing. And imagine how much worse it gets when social media use begins practically at infancy and lasts through a lifetime. You know, when a child's brain, for a lot of us, people in my generation, we were kids and we had a real childhood, and our brains formed, despite maybe some of the brain damage from jumping off of high structures and that sort of thing. And then the internet came along and messed us up. But at least we had a real childhood first, where we did things like go outside and play around, and we played tag and dodgeball. We went and ran around in the woods, and we got our jeans dirty and holes in the jeans and stuff like that. And we did all of that. And then the internet came along and robbed us of the rest of our lives and screwed up our brains. And that's bad. But imagine when a child's brain forms around the internet because they are immersed in it from birth practically. We also know that children are highly susceptible, easily influenced. On social media, they're encountering a mechanism designed by multi-billion-dollar companies with the express purpose of influencing them, of making them addicted. Letting your kid use social media, it's like letting them loose in a casino to play on the slot machines. Slot machines are expertly designed to put the user into a sort of trance where they lose their free will and continue playing even while they bankrupt themselves and soil their pants. If you've ever been to a casino, by the way, it's always a little bit like scandalous at first. But if you've never been to a casino before and everything you learn about casinos, you learn from Martin Scorsese movies or something like that, or James Bond. And then you go to a casino for the first time and you see that it's this immensely depressing environment where it's just a bunch of mostly people who are over the age of 75 sitting there with their oxygen tanks, just staring at the slot machine barely awake like zombies. They keep pressing this button. They sit there for hours. Well, the slot machine is designed to have that effect. A lot of money went into doing that to people. Social media is meant to induce a similar trance, except it doesn't end when you leave the casino. And also, it's not 75-year-olds using it, it's kids. Add this to all the sexually charged imagery, the violent imagery and all that they're going to be exposed to relentlessly, hour by hour, day by day on social media. And what you end up with is a picture where social media can do nothing but harm them. That's the only thing it can do. It's not going to help them. It's not going to make them a better person. Okay, there's no scenario where you keep your kid from using social media and then they turn 18 years old and you say to yourself, oh man, I wish they had spent more time on Instagram. Okay, no parent is going to look back at their experience as a parent with their child and their in childhood and say to themselves, I wish I'd introduced TikTok earlier. No parent is going to say that. A lot of parents are going to say, and are saying right now, man, my kid is a zombie. I barely even recognize him. He is totally addicted to this stuff. He has no interest outside of it. His life completely revolves around this screen. He is being consumed by it. I wish I'd kept him away from it. Because it can only harm them. The question is simply, how much will it harm them? And the answer is a lot. And that's why today, I must say that in this dispute, Kim Kardashian is getting canceled. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends.